Their spines had been cut, and then he played with them like, a cat would play with a mouse.
To yell, your eyes, they turn solid black.
Join us in another Twisted Tangent.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night, wherever you are, whatever you are doing, welcome to another Twisted Tangents. This is just going to be a mini episode. I'm going to be doing this one on my own, and it's just all I'm going to be doing is profiling big-time serial killers. So, in our main episodes, we will be talking about anything and everything, and in these mini episodes, I'm probably just going to be talking about your serial killers, like your Ted Bundys, your John Wayne Gacy, all those sort of guys, the ones everyone kind of knows about, but they may not know everything about them. So I'm going to be learning a lot here. I'm totally just going to be reading articles as I'm recording, so my reaction's pretty legit. Here we go. I thought we'd start sort of at the start. It wasn't until Ted Bundy that the term serial killer was actually introduced, but a lot of people say that this man was kind of one of the start of this kind of serial killer being a larger than life kind of thing. Sure, you can go all the way back to obviously H.H. Holmes being the first technical serial killer, I believe. You got Jack the Ripper, guys like that. But this guy has inspired a majority of horror movies. So if you've seen a horror movie, it is probably in some way attributed to this man here. I know Texas Chainsaw Massacre was pretty much solely based off of this man. Other movies such as Psycho was also loosely based off of it. And obviously you got your more modern movies which are based off the old ones, which are then based off of him. So everything can basically come down to one man. He is the Butcher of Plainfield, born August 27th, 1906 in La Crosse County, Wisconsin in America. Edward Theodore Gein, also known as just Ed Gein. From what I have read previously, he was he was the weird guy in town, but he was kind of like you see him down the streets, just from watching the news reports from when everything happened. Everyone was saying that It was just Ed. He was the guy that you'd walk past in the street and say g'day, have a bit of a chat to. No one ever suspected him of ever actually being anything, just kind of a bit of a weird guy. Which, everyone kind of has their secrets. Some not quite as weird as Ed. If you don't know exactly what he did some messed up stuff, very, very messed up stuff. So he started by going to cemeteries at night. I believe that he preferred to sort of see a funeral happen, and then he'd go and exhume the corpse from the ground. Kind of makes sense. Get them relatively fresh. You don't want something that's been there for 10, 20 years. Okay, I'm not condoning anything this man has ever done. It's just the facts. It's just what he did. So, he exhumed corpses from the graveyards, and he fashioned trophies and keepsakes out of them. So he would turn he cut off nipples and turned a whole bunch of nipples into a belt. Why you'd ever think to make a nipple belt, I don't actually know. But he did that. That was a thing he wanted to do. He would take skin and he would make lampshades out of them. He would take someone's skull, the top part of the skull, and turn that into a bowl. Look, as sick, twisted, and morbid as it all is, obviously he had to have some form of intelligence to even think of doing this kind of stuff. Because you got to remember that when Ed was doing all of this stuff, horror movies weren't really around. So there was no Jason Voorhees or Freddy Krueger or anything like that. So where he got the ideas for all this sort of stuff is fucking beyond me. But yeah, so we did all of this. He's just a weird dude. But I'm going to look at sort of how he grew up and stuff. Because it seems that there's either... A lot of them have suffered abuse when they were growing up, or neglect, or something that kind of links them to doing fucking messed up shit later in life. Anyway, so this is coming direct from Wikipedia, so it's the most reliable source out there. Good old Wikipedia. Ed Gein was born in La Crosse County, Wisconsin on August 27, 1906, the second of two boys to George Philip Gein and Augusta Wilhelmine Gein. Gein had an older brother, Henry George Gein. Augusta despised her husband, an alcoholic. That seems to be a common trait, alcoholic fathers. It's either alcoholic fathers or, what's the word I'm looking for? Like, absent fathers. I don't know why, but that always seems to be a trait that I've noticed. Augusta despised her husband, an alcoholic who was unable to keep a job. He had worked at various times as a carpenter, tanner, and insurance salesman. George owned a local grocery shop a few years, but sold the business, and the family left the city to live in isolation on a 155-acre farm in the town of Plainfield. Wow, that's huge. Which became the Gein family's permanent residence. Augusta took advantage of the farm's isolation by turning away outsiders who could have influenced her sons. Okay, so that's interesting. So they're basically just living on their own with no outside interaction. That obviously has a very, very, very... just a giant impact on a child's upbringing, not having that interaction with anyone except for family. Edward left the farm only to attend school. Okay. Outside of school, he spent most of his time doing chores on the farm. Well, I suppose doing chores on a 155-acre farm would take a lot of time. I mean, I'd struggle keeping a small 3-bedroom house clean, let alone a 155-acre farm. Jesus. Augusta was she was very fucking religious. Okay, so a nominally Lutheran, that's the word. Yeah, fucking religion back in it again. I got nothing against religion, just don't be a fucking nut about it. That never ends well. Look at fucking Jonestown. She preached to her boys about the innate immorality of the world, the evil of drinking, and a belief that all women, except for herself, go figure, were naturally prostitutes and instruments of the devil. Okay, so she's it'd be interesting to see how she grew up. If that's what her views of the world and of women were, it'd be interesting to see how she grew up. She reserved time every afternoon to read to them from the Bible, usually selecting graphic verses from the Old Testament concerning death, murder, and divine retribution. Edward was shy, and classmates and teachers remembered him as having strange mannerisms, such as seemingly random laughter as if he were laughing at his own personal jokes. Well, to be fair, I used to do that. I used to just think of something and then I'd be laughing and people would be like, dude, what are you laughing at? I'd be like, it's funny in my head. Yeah, but I suppose to the outside that'd probably be super weird. You just suddenly burst out laughing. To make matters worse, his mother punished him whenever he tried to make friends. Despite his poor social development, he did fairly well in school, particularly in reading. Wow. Okay. That's a very interesting read, that. I knew he had poor social development skills. This day and age, he'd be diagnosed with God knows how many different things. But back then, it was shunned upon, completely and utterly shunned upon. If you had anything wrong with you mentally, you were just institutionalized and forgotten about. So I suppose it kind of makes sense. She was trying to protect him maybe in a little bit. But if he's trying to make friends, you'll let your young bloke make some friends? Surely. Moving on. Gein. So Ed's father, George, died of heart failure caused by his alcoholism. He was 66. Okay. Henry and Ed began doing odd jobs around town to help cover living expenses. The brothers were generally considered reliable and honest by residents of the community. While both worked as handymen, Ed also frequently babysat for neighbours. Oh, that's creepy! Knowing what he ended up doing, that's kind of creepy. He enjoyed babysitting, seeming to relate more easily to children than adults, which is probably his mother's fault. Henry began dating a divorced single mother of two and planned on moving in with her, which at the time probably was shunned upon, I'd say. Henry worried about his brother's attachment to their mother and often spoke ill of her around Ed, who responded with shock and hurt. Yeah, I know he had this whole Freudian mother-son thing going on. Super weird. On May 16th, 1944... Henry and Ed were burning away marsh vegetation on the property. The fire got out of control, drawing attention of the local fire department. By the end of the day, the fire having been extinguished and the firefighters gone, Ed reported his brother missing. With lanterns and flashlights, a search party searched for Henry, whose dead body was found lying face down. Apparently, he had been dead for some time, and it appeared that the cause of death was heart failure. Since he had not been burnt or injured otherwise, it was later reported in Harold Schechter's biography of Gein, Deviant, that Henry had bruises on his head. Yeah, I did read about this, and I know there's a lot of thought that it was Ed that killed his brother, and that was his first official victim. Yeah. Anyway, moving along. Gein and his mother were alone. Augusta had a paralyzing stroke shortly after Henry's death, and Gein devoted himself to taking care of her. Sometime in 1945, Gein later recounted he and his mother visited a man named Smith, right, who lived nearby to purchase straw. According to Gein, Augusta witnessed Smith beating a dog. A woman inside the Smith home came outside and yelled, "Stop!" Smith beat the dog to death. Wow. Augusta was extremely upset by this scene. What bothered her did not appear to be the brutality toward the dog, but the presence of the woman. Augusta told Ed that the woman was not married to Smith, so had no business being there. Smith's harlot, Augusta angrily called her. She had a second stroke soon after, and her health deteriorated rapidly. She died on December 29th, 1945, at the age of 67. Ed was devastated by her death. In the words of author Harold Schechter, he had lost his only friend and one true love, and he was absolutely alone in the world. And yes, that was his only friend in the world, because she did not let him have any friends. She refused to let him make friends, and when he tried making friends, she was just like, no friends, I'm your friend. I don't think that's what she sounded like. She probably didn't. But yeah, wow. So she's dead, and he's just absolutely devastated by it, because he's got no one. His dad's dead, his brother's gone. Probably killed his own brother. Wow. So from there, he just did odd jobs around town, doing handyman kind of stuff, and he kept living on the farm. Now, the weird thing about this is when the police raided his house, he had kept his mother's room exactly as it was when she died. I'm not sure if she was in there or not. I'm sure I will read about that soon, but I do recall that her house was in complete and utter disrepair. He didn't clean anything, and it was just a mess, except for her room, which was untouched. So that just sort of, it's a little insight to his psyche at the time. So this is where Ed kind of went off the rails a bit. So he's doing odd jobs around the town, and on the morning of November 16th, 1957, Plainfield hardware store owner Bernice Warden disappeared. A Plainfield resident reported that the hardware store's truck had been driven out from the rear of the building at around 9:30 a.m. The hardware store was closed the entire day. Some area residents believed this was because of deer hunting season. Bernice Warden's son, Deputy Sheriff Frank Warden, entered the store around 5 p.m. to find the store's cash register open and bloodstains on the floor. Frank Warden told investigators that Ed Gein had been in the store that the evening before his mother's disappearance, and that he would return the next morning for a gallon of antifreeze. A sales slip for a gallon of antifreeze was the last receipt written by Warden on the morning she disappeared. So that's basically just like, yeah, that was Ed. Straight up. He was somewhat intelligent, but at the same time, he didn't cover his tracks very well. You hear of serial killers now that it takes them years and years and years to find them because they just covered their tracks super well. And this, he was just like, yeah, whatever. On the evening of the same day, Gein was arrested at West Plainfield grocery store. Okay. Then they went and searched the farm. They discovered Warden's decapitated body in a shed on Gein's property, hung upside down by her legs with a crossbar at her ankles and ropes at her wrists. The torso was dressed out like a deer. She'd been shot with a .22 caliber rifle, and the mutilations were made after her death. Whilst they were searching the house, these are some of the things that they found. Now, I'm going to warn you now that if the hanging upside down by her legs with the crossbar at her ankles and ropes at her wrist was a little bit too much for you, A, you probably shouldn't be listening to Twisted Tangents at all, and B, this list I've got in front of me is probably not going to suit your mental thing. You're not going to like it, is what I'm trying to say. It's going to disgust you. But this actually happened, and that's the thing you got to try and remember, is that this is real. This actually, it's not a movie. This is a man that was alive who actually did these things. So some of these are from corpses that he dug up at the cemetery, and others are from people that he killed. So there were two women that he killed, one being Bernice Warden, the other being Mary Hogan, who was a bartender. So when authorities searched his house, they found whole human bones and fragments, wastebasket made of human skin. Everything, for some reason, he just wanted everything made from fucking humans, apparently. Human skin covering several chair seats, skulls on his bedpost. That's kind of cool. in a morbid, twisted kind of way. Female skulls, some with the top sawn off, bowls made from human skulls, a corset made from a female torso, skinned from shoulders to waist. Leggings made from human leg skin, masks made from the skin of female heads. Now that, I believe Ed used to wear the masks, just like in Texas Chainsaw Massacre. So, and the other one I think of is The Devil's Rejects, which is really cool. If you haven't seen Devil's Rejects, fucking watch it. It's mad. Spoiler alert, one of the scenes in it, chick's boyfriend gets his face cut off, and then they make that into a mask and put it on her, hang her on the back of the hotel door in some little bumfuck town. And then when the maid comes in, the door swings open, she drops off, fucking loses her shit. She's running around like a fucking mad woman with her boyfriend's face on her. And she runs out into a road, tries to flag down a truck, which just goes straight through her and spreads her out for like 100 meters on this highway. It is brutal, but I'm pretty sure this is kind of where they got that up from. Mary Hogan's face mask in a paper bag, Mary Hogan's skull in a box, Bernice Warden's entire head in a burlap sack, Bernice Warden's heart in a plastic bag in front of Gein's pot-bellied stove. 9 vulvas, which is another word for vaginas, in a shoebox, a young girl's dress, and the vulvas of 2 females judged to be about 15 years old. A belt made from female human nipples, 4 noses, a pair of lips on a window shade drawstring, a lampshade made from the skin of a human face, fingernails from female fingers. I don't know why you'd be keeping just the fucking fingernails, but yeah. These artifacts were photographed at the state crime laboratory and then destroyed. I'm pretty sure there are a couple of photos that I've seen. Whether they are the actual photos or recreations, I'm not entirely sure. But yeah, if they were destroyed, I'm assuming they're probably just recreations. When questioned, Gein told investigators that between 1947 and 1952, 5 years, wow, he made as many as 40 nocturnal visits to 3 local graveyards to exhume recently buried bodies while he was in a daze-like state. On about 30 of those visits, he said he came out of the daze while in the cemetery, left the grave in good order, and returned home empty-handed. On other occasions, he dug up the graves of recently buried middle-aged women he thought resembled his mother. Oh man, Freud would be having a field day with this. And took the bodies home where he tanned their skins to make his paraphernalia. Gein admitted to stealing from 9 graves and led investigators to their locations because authorities were uncertain as to whether the slight Gein was capable of single-handedly digging up a grave during a single evening. They exhumed 2 of the graves and found them empty. One had a crowbar in place of the body, thus apparently corroborating Gein's confession. Wow, okay. Soon after his mother's death, Gein began to create a woman's suit so that he could become his mother, to literally crawl into her skin, which is super morbid and super fucked up. Gein denied having sex with the bodies he exhumed, explaining they smelled too bad. During state crime laboratory interrogation, Gein also admitted to the shooting death of Mary Hogan, a tavern owner missing since '54, whose head was found in his house, but he later denied memory of details of her death. A 16-year-old youth whose parents were friends of Gein and who attended ball games and movies with him reported that Gein kept shrunken heads in his house, which Gein had described as relics from the Philippines, sent by a cousin who had served on the islands during World War II. Upon investigation by the police, these were determined to be human facial skins, carefully peeled from corpses and used by Gein as masks. Gein was also considered a suspect in several other unsolved cases in Wisconsin, including the '53 disappearance of Evelyn Hartley, a lacrosse babysitter. Man, this dude is seriously messed up. During questioning, Washara, I'm not sure how to say that, County Sheriff Art Schley reportedly assaulted Gein by banging his head and face into a brick wall, which wasn't uncommon back then. I've heard many stories of police brutality to get confessions and details. Obviously now you would not get away with it at all because everything is videotaped and everything's like, you know, you can't touch a suspect regardless of what fucking happens. As a result, Gein's initial confession was ruled inadmissible. Schley died of a heart failure at age 43 in 1968 before Gein's trial. Many who knew Schley said he was traumatized by the horror of Gein's crimes, and this, along with the fear of having to testify, especially about assaulting Gein, caused his death. One of his friends said he was a victim of Ed Gein as surely as if he had butchered him. So there you go. Wow, that is very full on. There's obviously a lot that I've sort of just glazed over. But you know, it's parts in. So he was obviously convicted, but he pleaded not guilty by reason of insanity. So he was diagnosed with schizophrenia, which, to be honest, I'm not all that surprised about. No one with a sane mind does what Ed Gein did. It just doesn't. There's no rational way of just going, oh yeah, I'm going to dig up all these corpses and I'm going to make a female bodysuit where I will then become my mother. It's no sane person does that. Like, you can be sane and kill people. That's one thing. You can become a really sick, twisted serial killer and still be deemed sane, but you do not make a fucking female bodysuit out of actual people to become your fucking mother. That's too far. Too far. Too much. Take it back. Yeah, so he was obviously institutionalized for life at the Mendota State Hospital in Madison, Wisconsin. So, yeah, he obviously couldn't really face trial or do anything. He was completely batshit fucking crazy. Gein's, this bit's interesting. And it makes total sense why. Gein's house and property was scheduled to be auctioned on March 30, 1958, amid rumours the house was to become a tourist attraction, which it totally would. On March 27th, so 3 days before the scheduled auction, the house was destroyed by fire. Arson was suspected, but the cause was never officially determined. When Gein learned of the incident while in detention, he shrugged and said, just as well. Gein's car, which he used to haul the bodies of his victims, was sold at public auction for $760 to Carnival sideshow operator Bunny Gibbons. Gibbons later charged carnival goers 25 cents admission to see it. That would be cool to see the car that Gein used. So obviously, like, I'm obviously into this kind of stuff. It's cool. Zach Bagans. If you don't know who Zach Bagans is, what are you doing? The host of Ghost Adventures. He has a little sort of a place in Vegas that I really want to go to, where he's got stuff like this on display. He's got like his little museum kind of thing in Vegas. They had a TV show about it. I think it lasted about one season, which is very disappointing because it was amazing. Absolutely loved it. Both me and Bond loved it. And I don't think there's ever been another episode, but that's one place that I'm definitely going at some stage in my life. I will be going to Zach Bagans' museum because it's cool. Anyway, back to Gein. He died in the mental hospital due to respiratory failure secondary to lung cancer on July 26, 1984 at the age of 77. Over the years, souvenir seekers chipped pieces from his gravestone at the Plainfield Cemetery until the stone itself was stolen in 2000. It was recovered in June 2001 near Seattle and was placed in storage at the county sheriff's department. The gravesite itself is now unmarked, but not unknown. Gein is interred between parents and brother. Well, that's nice. They're all together again. They probably don't want to be with Ed after what he's fucking done. Well, that's nice. The story of Ed Gein was featured on Season 1, Episode 1 of the R-rated documentary series Behind the Screams, which I've not watched, but I am intrigued. First shown on 26 September 2015, called A Real Psycho. So yeah, there is plenty of stuff that is linked back to Ed Gein. He really did just sort of kick off everything. And whether these other serial killers base their stuff off of him, I'm not sure. But it does seem they're back in the, from Ed Gein's time to like the 70s or 80s, it really seemed to be a bit of one-upmanship in serial killers, which is totally not a cool thing to do. One-upmanship's cool and all. Don't fucking do it when you're trying to kill a whole bunch of people. Don't just don't kill people. If you don't like someone, just fucking move on. So here's all of the things that relate back to him, and there is a lot of stuff here. So I'm just going to kind of skim over it. There's going to be stuff that I won't talk about, but Psycho, which I already mentioned, in addition to Alfred Hitchcock's 1960 film of Bloch's psychic novel, blah 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 blah. So yeah, there's Psycho there. The movie Ed Gein, The Butcher of Plainfield. Rob Zombie's House of a Thousand Corpses, and there was Rejects. Served as a model. We got Norman Bates from Psycho has a real thing for his mum, as did Ed Gein. Leatherface from Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Buffalo Bill from Silence of the Lambs, and the character Dr. Oliver Thredson from TV series American Horror Story Asylum, which I have not seen. I know, I'm weird. One of my favorite songs ever written, Dead Skin Mask by Slayer from the album Seasons in the Abyss, is completely and utterly 100% about Ed Gein. And the end of it, super creepy, with a little girl screaming, "Hello, Mr. Gein." It's just, everything about it is just super, super creepy. Nothing to Gain from Mudvayne's LD50 album. Another great, I fucking love Mudvayne too. There was a band, Ed Gein, called After the Murderer. Ed Gein's atrocities were also satirized in Blind Melon's Skinned, off the 95 album Soup, which juxtaposed cheery instrumentation with semi-factual representations of Gein's crimes, arguably toward a comedic end. Yeah, it sounds about right for Blind Melon. I also had a band, very, very, very briefly, never actually played a show, but I started a horror punk band called Gein's Ghouls. So, there you go. There is the first of these I'd say mini episodes, but this one's already gone on for over half an hour. And, well, I suppose it's going to be mini compared to our other ones. So I'm thinking I might do one a week, depending on how popular these are, because there are plenty of profiles I can be doing. Everything from Edmund Kemper to Jack the Ripper, because apparently they know who he is now. There are plenty of serial killers out there that I can profile that you may have heard of. You may know a lot about them. You may know nothing about them. So I hope you enjoyed it. And I hope that this is something I can keep doing in the future. So I'll be doing these on my own. I'm just going to be reading articles. So obviously I can't read out loud too well, but there you go. So don't forget, we're all over Facebook, Instagram. We've got Twitter as well. Everything, just look for Twisted Tangents Podcast on everything from, the big three social medias. We're on them. And leave us a comment and we will reply to you. So we're hoping that one day it's going to get to the point where we can't reply due to that many comments. But at this stage, we are able to reply to absolutely everyone, which we will try and keep doing for as long as possible. So go check us out there. Let everyone know about Twisted Tangents podcasts. And until next time, good night.